check on that? I'm an employee myself.
Make a motion to approve the total project expenditures in the amount of $39,520 for slab bridge in Front Street.
I
For
second.
guardrail installation.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Yes. What's this one?
Chuck, can you bring the board up to speed on, through the chair, if you don't
Yeah,
mind,
no.
on, what, I know we don't have anything left in the snow budget, but where we are and how far of a deficit we're in right now, and with the impending storm coming up, what you feel we're gonna be, and what we feel we're gonna have to look for.
Who have you been talking to about an impending storm?
When I left the house, it was on, I was like,
Yeah, it's on
impending
there.
storm on the way, I'm like,
Smoke?
well,
No.
you know how they do like that highlight thing?
Not in the country that I live in.
Okay.
We,
Are we looking at rain?
yes,
All right, but where are we in the snow budget right now? How far under?
probably $90,000. It would take, I would,
We have 90,000 left.
No.
No.
I would guesstimate that we spent approximately $190,000 so far this year.
Okay.
The big snowstorm, we spent, the big snowstorm and the week after, upwards of like $92,000.
So if you don't, can you indulge me for a minute? Sure. So while we have our state reps here, hi, is there any money coming from the state to help offset any of this blizzard stuff that we're on, or do you know anything that can help us out in any way?
But you will.
They're still gathering, NEMA's still gathering information on this, and if they feel that it's enough, they'll pursue it.
All right, but it's a good to try to find out and let us know.
That's Univiста. That number's going to be a little different than what we say I'm going to fix it. This is the total. Univista Avenue was drainage repair and resurfaced the road. Did drainage repair, and then 3 weeks later found a ginormous sinkhole. There's a picture of the sinkhole. That goes down approximately 12 feet, straight down into the abyss.
This has been a big wreck.
Big wrap.
Look at that hole.
That opening was approximately 6 feet undergrade, so that's why that job came in the budget.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve state funds of $28,682.46 for Buena Avenue. Actually, the first total payment at $29,553, so this is a little bit under. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Abstain. So that was it.
There's still, I know you're not the tree warden, but there's, now that the snow is somewhat melting, there's so much work to be
There's a
done.
lot of debris out
We
there.
have a 3-man highway department. We can only do so much.
I know.
But that is,
It is.
what you're doing is that, is kind of, some of the, all the, they're all evergreens too.
Yes, ma'am. We're doing the best we can.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Okay, and again, thank you, Laura Schmidt, for being here, because we have had some issues and people have been concerned about pond levels again. And also Mr. Bourgeois, part of this discussion going way back. If we had an update from you, that would be really wonderful.
My name is Keiko Oral, and I am the representative from the 12th Bristol District, which used to include East Freetown. This is Representative Paul Schmidt. As you know, he is the current representative for Freetown. We are here tonight to talk about the water levels. I live in Lakeville, and I've been active on the Asquanted Pond Complex Stakeholders Committee, which is looking at and making sure that the water levels are carefully watched. So since the 2010 flooding, we have been looking at how we can better understand how the process and how that complex works together, because we have a number of different ponds that feed into the complex. Little Quittacus, Big Quittacus, Long Pond and Assawamsett, they cover at different levels, and then we have the Nemasket River that leads into the Taunton. So what has happened after that terrible event and the tragic, or the disaster in 2010, we have been watching the groundwater levels very carefully. We have been carefully watching the levels and the gates, and making sure that we are trying to work to the target levels that the group felt were the target levels to be reached. So with that flooding incident, there was a little bit of friction between the different towns as far as whose fault it was, who wasn't doing their job, and because we have we have 5 communities represented. We have Freetown, we have Lakeville, we have Rochester, we have New Bedford, and we have Taunton that all play into the Assawamsett Pond complex. So, because New Bedford and Taunton take their water from the Assawamsett Pond. So, what has happened since that time is that we have met on a quarterly basis, and we're meeting again March 12th, and we have representatives from the different communities that all come together and discuss what's going on with the water. Now, recently, the Long Pond is frozen, so they haven't been taking the measurements that they have usually take on Long Pond. The Assawamsett Pond is at 54.9, which 53.9, and sorry. And I just talked with the Taunton DPW today. They are very, and I am confident that they're watching the water very closely. They're making sure that they're taking into account the storms that we're having, the snow, the amount of groundwater level. So I'm confident that they are paying attention. And I think that's part of the things, that's one of the lessons that we've learned from 2010, is that we need to pay better attention. But with that, we also need to study what is going on with the problem, because there were clearly some problems that we were made well aware of during that storm. And we were able to, as a region, work together to get some funding from the federal government for a USGS FEMA study. They were in the process of doing another study, and as a region, we asked for them to consider our pond complex in their study. So that is ongoing, it's taking place. I have the printout for the town administrator as far as what they're specifically going to be looking at to understand better where we are with managing the water levels. So we're continuing to pursue the best study and the fullest study that we can get from the federal government. As far as state funds, there are very little state funds for projects like this, so that we can understand how we should manage the level. So we're working with USGS and with FEMA to make sure that people and their property values are kept safe. So I know that I haven't received a number of, have you received calls?
I have not, but I think that people still believe that you are the person who is managing this, as indeed you have. So I'm not surprised that...
And I welcome your calls. Representative Schmidt is very receptive and will also address your concerns. If you live on the pond, if you're concerned about the water, but we do need you as far as watching the water levels. You know, you've lived on the lake, you've lived on the water, you know what the water should look like at different times. And I know that I have friends that are on Assawamsett Pond that are keeping me up to date as far as the water level's really high. It hasn't been. So I'm here to say that we're keeping an eye on it. We have good people that are working now together. There was the friction, but I think that now we've gotten past that. We've worked through most of our issues. We're still working through some things, but that's where we have to be as communities. We have to work through the problems. We have to be able to do that to move forward. So I again welcome any concerns that you have regarding the water, as does Representative Schmidt. And that's about it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Through the chair. Yep. Okay, I have received a lot of phone calls, and I think that, first of all, they are thinking that the water level is high. That's number one. Number two is they're really worried and concerned because this is almost the same exact example that we were back in pre-flood, that we had a lot of snow, a lot of ice, and when all that melted and then the March rains came in is where we found ourselves in the position that we're in. So my question is, and we're always sort of like reactive instead of proactive, and I know that we have been more proactive lately than we were back when, and that's great, and I give kudos to everybody. But there are people that are really concerned, especially because this is a blizzard, and there's more rains coming, and we haven't even hit March yet. So my question is that we were going to be looking at all the boards being pulled up, and forgive me if you guys, all the dike boards, they should all be up so it's flowing all the way down river. There was some reluctance from and I'm not politically correct, so there was some reluctance from one of the towns, and I'm just wondering if we have bypassed that, if all the boards are up and the river is free flowing right now.
All the boards are up between Assawamsett and Damascus, and they have been for several months. And on the Damascus River itself, the boards were lowered in January, and they were in the process of raising those slightly because of the herring and the spring fish. So, as far as people's concerns, again, we're staying on top of this. I talked with the DPW today in Taunton, the water department, and January through March is the rainiest part of the year according to their records. And so we're almost through February. We need to get through March, and then, I mean, they're doing as much as we can with what we have, and we are trying to be proactive as far as keeping the water levels down when we can move the water. So right now, it's all open, and so we're trying to get the water to move, except for there are some concerns in Middleborough, but again, it's the dance that we play between the fish and the river.
I get that. I'm sorry. I get that there's such a dance that you play, but see, this board doesn't dance the same dance. We don't dance the same waltz, okay? Because we've had people around the pond devastated. Friends of mine have lost homes. They've had to rebuild. They've had to go out, and I can't tell that I'm dancing the same dance as everybody else, because my number one job and this board's number one job is to protect those people on the pond. And if we said we're going to have quarterly meetings and we're doing that, and we said that we're going to go, make sure that our levels are all right, and we're going to try to do that, that's what we need to do. So if we have to come to some sort of joint meeting with them again and say, look, like, there are properties. We're not talking about, I get fish and environment. I all get that. But I have a hard time when I look at people in the eye and they've lost their houses. I have a hard time with that. So, I mean, we have to come to some sort of consensus where you can save your herring or they can save their herring, but I need to protect the people and we need to protect the people along the pond.
Well, absolutely, and I think that is definitely where we're at as well, that we're wanting to protect people's property values, we're wanting to protect their homes, and we're also wanting to keep people safe. And I know that I've also talked with people who had, a lot of emotional stress because it was very stressful to go through the flooding situation. And so we are aware that That is a concern. But we have done and been diligent about the water, and we're doing what we can to make sure that we don't have a repeat of the situation that we had before. So, again, I mean, people can feel free to contact us, and they can feel free to share their concerns. You can feel free to continue to reach out to Ms. Pacheco, and but we are trying, and so please be patient. We'll continue to monitor it very carefully.
Is there anybody that lives on the ponds that wants to speak?
I'm just curious, I mean, if the river doesn't flow, having boards open doesn't do anything. So who's responsible for, I mean, trees are falling over all over the place. They're gonna be falling along the river, the things clog up. Things, the water's just not flowing. So you can pick all the boards up you want, but if it's not going anywhere.
Well, and that
So
is-
who's responsible for the waterways, the river itself, I guess?
Well, we've had some discussion about who's responsible for the riverways. But we also know that is part of the problem, and that's where Middleborough comes in, and they say, look, we have the boards down, it's not doing anything, the water's not moving, it's the river. And so as part of the USGS FEMA study, we're going to encourage them to include a bathymetry report, which will study the bottom of the river to find out where the shoals are, where there's where the holdup is in the river. Because until we can determine that, we can't clean up the whole river. We need to have some type of idea of where do you start digging. I think that, when I got into this, we were in a more of a crisis situation where the water levels were really high, and I was getting a lot of phone calls from Lakeville, Freetown, a lot of places. And so that was more of a crisis type of situation. And we're trying very hard to make sure that we understand where the issues are. So because it was a crisis situation and I was new, I thought, we just need to start digging. We need to dig out the river so it will flow. But where do you start digging? You can't just dig the whole river. You can't, and I've had Army Corps, we've had Fish and Game, we've had DCR, a number of people trying to help us solve in whose domain this is, and DEP. It's all part of a tangled web. But I think part of where we're going is with the study is that we're going to try to find out where, if and where it is clogged, so that we can, get to better managing.
There's a ton of sediment in the Masket, which would automatically elevate their water levels, and everyone has acknowledged that's a big problem in the river. And you have already contacted the Army Corps on that, because that was part of their purview, I would imagine. Because I too am getting a lot of calls. In fact, the reason we called you in tonight is because I got one very recently from someone who we used to always post updated levels. It's frozen now, it's hard to get levels. But the fear is very real in light of what Mrs. Pacheco alluded to, that we had that confluence of events. We had tons of snowfall, no drainage, then rain, and it was the end of March when the dam went. And it was in early April when we had the subsequent flooding. So we had probably 2 weeks of a devastating situation where many people did lose their homes. And FEMA, for all the proactivity they demonstrated, you can't replace that. You never get back to where you were, which is why you're hearing this, and we are hearing it. I'm getting frequent calls on this. So coming in is great. Having a meeting on March 12th, you said?
Right, and that's the stakeholders meeting where the different officials from the town come together to try to discuss what's happening. And we'll definitely, Paul is part of that committee, so we'll make sure that Freetown has been well represented.
Yeah.
May I just jump in and say that, as you can tell, Representative Orrell has been the point person on this, representing East Freetown until we changed at the first of this year. And I believe that we are miles ahead of where we were 3 years ago. We have been meeting quarterly. involving all the stakeholders, and the question was who's responsible for the river. Well, it turns out there are multiple stakeholders, multiple responsibilities, and so getting people together, as we have for the last year and a half, has been a big step forward. Secondly, having to have the boards down this winter, trying to get ahead of the March rains puts us ahead of where we were 3 years ago. But I think that it certainly is important for me to hear. I hadn't heard that there were concerns. I certainly hear that now, and I want to offer myself, being the state rep for East Freetown, my telephone numbers are here. I'll leave my business cards right here, and I'll get more before I leave. Let us know, keep us in the loop, and we will keep the board in the loop after the March 12 meeting.
Thank you. Paul?
I would suggest that if people have concerns regarding this issue with the water, at least make a call to our office, or the Selectmen's office, so we can have a list of everybody that's calling. I haven't had any contact from anybody, and I live a mile from the pond. I have seen one email, so I suggest that so all the board knows, you should at least make your contact with the town hall first, with the Board of Selectmen's office, and then if you want to call individual selectmen, feel free. But that way we'll all know how many people are calling and so forth. That's what my suggestion is.
And please be assured that, I mean, I also have friends that live on the water, and they were affected by the flooding, and so that's why I've been so active in this, and it's very, I understand how important it is to both Lakeville and Freetown, Middleborough, Taunton. I mean, it's important to all the communities, New Bedford and Rochester. And so that's why we are staying so active and making sure that we understand what USGS FEMA their study is going to accomplish and how much more we need to do. And then we need to figure out how we're going to solve it. But first we have to figure out what we can do to do that. So.
Anybody else? Upon? Well, with that, it looks like you're going to make your next appointment. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for your input, and I'll be back with more.
Oh, sorry. It's all right. All right.
No, I think everybody knows you already, Keiko. So.
All right, we have nothing for the Board of Health or for the Personnel Board. Correct? Nothing to come up? That's fine. So, upcoming meetings, I'm sorry, March 11, March 25, April 8, April 22nd. Old business, we're still going to try to get in Old Colony, Bristol Aggie. We are, what's the department called?
That was the...
Oh, never mind, that's where we're working, Westport on that, correct?
Right, we've already had an initial meeting.
Okay, employee handbook, how are we doing on that?
I have some help on it, so getting a little bit more aggressive on that.
Excellent. And then you're having conversations with the planning board on the possible retention of a town planner. Did they have retained clerical support staff?
They have made an offer for the planning technician position. That individual has accepted,
Okay.
and I believe they will start, is it next week? A week from Thursday.
Can you say that again?
They will be starting a week from Thursday.
Can't hear you.
Planning board
Okay.
employee starting week from Thursday that accepted the offer.
Okay.
All right, so that's all we have on.
Not really.
Oh, you have something else?
Well,
Go ahead.
under old business, we asked that the meetings for the finance committee, so we can stop.
Yeah, where are they? Have you set those up?
So we need to set those, make sure that's on old business, so we can.
Yeah, we don't
Well,
want-
we set them for the 6th and the 20th.
Both of those are already posted.
So can we put that under
Yeah, let's keep it here.
board meetings?
Yeah. Yep.
And where are those, and do we know what departments?
They are going to be at the Council on Aging, and I have a tentative schedule for departments for both of those evenings, and I'll get that out to you this
Yeah,
week.
if you could share that with us this week. because we
6
need
or
to-
6:30?
What time?
6:30.
Thank you.
Yeah, if we have a breakdown of that, it's helpful because we have all the budget pages and we prepared ahead of time. So that's great. So we are prepared to adjourn this regular meeting, and a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to ask,
Oh, certainly.
and I don't know if this is appropriate to ask you to Congressman, I'll let him look at it first. Can you help us?
Yes.
No.
So now, okay, we're ready to adjourn the regular meeting. We are not going to have the open session. All right,
Make
so-
a motion to adjourn and to go into executive session, not to return into open session, for the reasons of to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual, or discuss the discipline, dismissal of, or complaint of charges against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. Once again, this is to go into executive session and not to reopen or reconvene to go and not to open it to open session.
Right. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Poll member, Mrs. Chico?
Yes.
Say it?
Yes.
So